This is Blenderstyle, the show where we discuss a blend of heavy and extreme music. On this episode, Bear Propaganda. This album was released in 2020 on Pelagic Records. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This was my pick. I discovered this in 2020 when this album came out, and I've kind of been jamming it ever since. I'm not familiar with the band before this. They do have some releases, prior to this one, and this actually made my top 10 of 2020 for sure. Have you heard of this, Casey?
Bear? I have not.
It's capital B-E-A-R. I think they pronounce it Bear. The E is backwards. It's like a 3.
Like the Russian alphabet.
Right. It's kind of
which is kind of weird because they're from Belgium.
They're from Belgium for sure, and it's doesn't make it any easier to find online or whatever.
No, I feel like there was very very limited information about this band.
So I don't know if it's like super underground and it just caught my attention or what, but I didn't find much on this either. Are you familiar with this name?
Mm-mm. No, not at all.
This is like I would call this progressive hardcore, if that's a thing.
Honestly, I didn't want to say it like this, but yeah, it's definitely progressive hardcore.
Is that an oxymoron, kind of?
That's what I said about it too, was progressive hardcore. I understand the hardcore, but I don't really understand the progressiveness of it. So it's kind of weird how it's hardcore but progressive. It's
not that's a good point, because it's not super technical progressive. But it's not straight up hardcore.
No, like there's like even like catchy little singy parts and like little things where the vocalist is changing it up and stuff.
So the vocals are like shouty and kind of like more aggressive hardcore, but there are clean parts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of dash through this.
They have a tendency to go right to the border of progressive and then back off, and then right to the border of hardcore and back off.
Oh, nicely
so
said.
they never fully embrace
either one. Not neither one or the other.
But it's hinted at, I guess you could say.
Right, because this is nothing like progressive metal per se.
No,
it's not. But it's hardcore either.
No, I think the hardcore comes from the shouty vocals.
Even the guitar playing and the drums and shit too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say definitely the guitar is hardcore sounding at times and stuff too. But vocally, that's where I kind of pick up the hardcore vibe, because it's more shouty and stuff.
But the song arrangements aren't super hardcore. Like, they're more...
They kind of follow a traditional kind of groove metal feel.
Yeah, like not pop, right? Where it's super predictable.
To me, this sounds like Meshuggah without the metal.
It's kind of, to me...
okay.
To me, it kind of feels like a mix of Mastodon and Meshuggah.
Really?
Yeah, because it's got that kind of progressive thing that Mastodon has.
The 2 M's.
This doesn't seem super progressive to me, though.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
But it is kind of...
It kind of borders. So there's like...
What makes it... Sorry.
Okay, well, so there's like some kicks. There's like some hints of groove metal, hardcore, death metal, progressive metal. They do like this kind of weird... They hit the edge of every one of those, and then they kind of back into something different. And so they never fully embrace any of those styles, which keeps it kind of fresh, but it's kind of hard to place it.
It's kind of its own thing almost.
It is.
But it's definitely derivative. Like, they're not doing... It's not super original. Like, nothing really jumps out at me as like being nothing I've never heard, but they put it together really well.
Yeah, so when I was listening to this, I got really harsh, or not harsh, but really like hardcore throwbacks towards like nu metal from the 90s and Gojira for some reason. Like, there were parts in here I was like, oh, it's Coal Chamber. Oh, it's Gojira now.
Well, the tone of the guitar is not very beefy.
It's not, but there's a lot of...
Yeah, like on Stigmata, it reminds me of a Slipknot. Like more that twangy kind of 7-string guitar sound, but kind of not super chunky either.
Yeah, for sure.
But there is a lot of low end on this. The bass, there's some really good bass driving, and the drum tone is on the deeper end of everything that they do on here.
The song arrangements are interesting though. Like,
they are.
They're definitely deeper than like hardcore music for sure.
Well, there's parts that are more accessible to people too. Like, I don't know, they really break it down to where like it's, I don't want to say radio friendly, but it's
like
it's able to.
It lets up enough that you can kind of get into it without it being too abrasive, like the whole time.
So it's not constantly,
Yeah.
hitting you. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of parts in this where you get like that ambient kind of guitar tone thing going on in the background, like a lot of the new metal bands did in the early '90s. And then it's really bass driven, which I think is kind of what reminds me of the Coal Chamber sound. And then you kind of bust into like these really heavier kind of guitars, like you said, but they're not real low. They're more of that twangy kind of Slipknot, springy almost sound.
Springy, yeah.
With the harsh vocal, like the vocals on this are really good. They're all over the place. They don't really stick to one style, which makes it kind of
It's kind of like two styles, right?
It
like,
is.
But the contrast is great.
It is. It is.
Because he leaves you wanting more. For me, he leaves. They do the shouting and the clean, and I want more of the clean. So when it comes around, it like really hooks for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that those are my favorite parts as well, actually.
Are the clean vocals?
When it actually broke down a little bit and wasn't so, trying to be like off time and like, you know what I mean? Like
heavy and
I don't know,
they're just kind of like back off and just let it chill for a second. Yeah, I totally agree.
And maybe that's where that progressive kind of feel comes, like you said. Like there is a lot of off time stuff that they try to throw in there to kind of.
Well, I think the drummer is definitely doing some intricate off timing stuff,
almost like mathcore stuff.
Yeah, but the guitar isn't necessarily doing that. It does at times, but it's.
Yeah, they don't really follow. Like it's almost like they're playing two completely separate structures at points in this.
Definitely one of my likes for sure is the variety in the vocals. Like when he does the clean parts, it's not super like beautiful, technical, clean vocals. It's just kind of like this one clean sound. I love it though. It sounds great in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd agree with that. I think the vocals are probably the highlight of this. The punchiness of the drums is another one. They have some really cool, there's not a lot of them, but there's really cool breakdowns. And then they kind of get into a lot of their songs, like even on the heavier parts where there's like this really cool groove going on.
Yeah,
something that you could like kind of slow headbang or slow bang your head to, or just,
groove is away.
Weird, yeah.
What I liked about this album was the more spacier elements of it. And when they kind of did bring it down and slow it down, and I thought they were more original in these pockets of the album. When they got to the more hardcore thing, it just kind of started all to sound the same, and it's something that I've already heard before. But what I do like about it is a gateway album to show people heavier music for sure.
That's kind of one of the things I liked about it too, is it takes that hardcore sound, like that genre, which I'm not a big fan of, and it makes it more interesting and
makes it accessible.
It adds something to it.
Yeah, that's something like I'm more into. One of the things I don't like about this, and I'm not going to talk about the album, but talk about the band. Their name is Bear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is impossible to find. Like, it's hard to research, and it's just.
Do you know how many grizzly bears I found looking for this band?
I found so many grizzly bears, bro.
I think I found
Did they do it like on purpose?
I don't know. I even searched for like B3AR because they do reverse. Yeah. Maybe I have the wrong keyboard. I need like an international keyboard or whatever. I just
fucking nerd.
Yeah. But that's not, that's just about the band. It just makes it hard to find. There's not a whole lot of interviews or reviews of this. So, maybe it's like super underground. Maybe it's just their name is, and propaganda didn't help.
Well, and so that's another thing.
That's like, one word, right?
This album came out in 2020. I couldn't find when this band formed. All I found was they were from Antwerp, Belgium?
From Belgium, yeah.
No idea when they formed. So maybe they're a newer band.
No, they have a couple things before this.
Okay, so to me, I was like...
I think this might be like their fourth album. I could be wrong about that.
I mean, how did you hear about this band?
There's a couple websites I follow that release like the top, the newest albums every week, and I just follow it every week. And one of them kind of leans towards more punk and hardcore. I was like, I'll check out Bear Propaganda just on a whim, and it just really caught my attention.
Yeah.
One of the things I disliked about the album was I felt like the vocals actually took up too much space of the music. The vocals were just really up front, and to have only two different aspects of your voice with this type of music, I don't know.
I wish there was more clean vocals. Like those parts really catch for me, and it's not they don't use it a lot, but
Mhm.
they use it. I wish they used it more. The clean vocals and kind of experiment, like you're saying. I wish there was more vocal dynamics here.
Mhm.
It just starts to kind of sound kind of cookie cutter to me. This is just stuff I've already heard. Maybe because I am a fan of you know what I mean? I'm a fan of hardcore and different things. And like I hear a lot of different bands in this. And I like it when bands do that. But then also at times it's kind of a turnoff for me. It just starts to kind of sound the same to me. And that's kind of just one of my dislikes.
So I didn't have a lot of dislikes about this. And to me, that was kind of the dislike in itself. I feel like because there's not a lot to dislike about this, I feel like this whole album played it really safe.
Well said.
I would agree with you 100% on
And
this.
so kind of like how we touched where we couldn't really place a sound on it. I feel like they went to the edge of hardcore and then backed off. They went to the edge of progressive and backed off. They went to the edge of mathcore and backed off. And so they never really placed themselves out there in that genre. It's like, oh, we don't want to be a mathcore band, so let's back off. We don't want to be a hardcore band, so let's back off. We don't want to be a groove band, so let's back off. And in a way, it kind of hinders them because they don't really have an identity.
I think you're kind of nailing it with that, bro.
Yeah, and it's weird because I sat there and I racked my head. I was like, what don't I like about it? I think there's really, it's good. The vocals are good. This is good. That's good. But they never commit to anything.
And that's kind of what, sometimes I've noticed within bands that, because now that we're doing this, we're listening to different music and stuff like that. And sometimes when we listen to bands that throw the kitchen sink at it, we don't have too much bad to say about it, but we just don't like it because it's just, you're
true.
Trying maybe a little too hard.
You're trying to cover too much. Yeah,
and like, are you doing that to just get everyone to like your music? Or are you doing that because you're...
Yeah. In my notes I wrote, I wish this was like deeper or like more progressive. And I think what I'm really trying to get at is I wish this has an identity of its own.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I feel like the dislike of it is it doesn't have an identity. It never commits to anything.
I really hope that they continue and start to experiment a little more, to tell you the truth. I would like to hear
want it to be more experimental
more,
too, yeah.
More soundscapes within it and more, like, I definitely like the more hookier, chiller parts in it and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The more laid back. I didn't really like too much of the off timing and stuff.
Like the mathcore stuff didn't do it for me.
So by no means is it a bad album. But yeah, I'm with you. I really feel like if they push themselves and kind of open up and I mean, they don't have to do a whole like progressive album or a whole groove metal album, but commit for that song, commit to it, and
maybe do like a concept album where they kind of come up with a musical idea. And
exactly,
then,
and I think if they push themselves that way, I think they could be really good because the musicianship on this is good.
Yeah, they're killing it.
It's just the commitment, the lack of commitment, I should say, is kind of a downfall.
Isn't like I hate saying words like the lack of commitment, that you know what I mean, because I get where they're coming from.
Yeah,
it sounds genuine. I just
like
don't
Casey's saying, playing it safe.
Yeah, but I mean, for all we know, this is them putting themselves out there. This is exactly what they were going for. So, I mean, yeah. So I mean, other than that, I mean, what would you guys rate this?
So I rate this at 2.8.
Okay.
I like the more chill parts. I hope that they go in that way. I'd like to hear what they come up with next.
So I gave this a 4.0 out of 5. I thought it was a great album. So like one of the things that we do on this show is we don't talk about the albums until we're here live. But also at the same time, a lot of the stuff we throw at each other, we might not have heard. And so when this was thrown out there, just based off our last few suggestions or our last few nominations, I was kind of dreading it. I was like, oh, God, I don't know where we're going with this. And I was surprised. It was a great album. I really wish they would have committed to something or pushed themselves a little bit. I think it would have made it an easy 5 because the musicianship on this is good.
They're like almost there.
They're almost there. It's a great album.
So not to get out of line, because I want to rate this more because I know that this band could do more. Does that sound funny?
No,
because
I think that makes sense.
And that might be why I'm rating it a 2, lower than a 3.
It's like giving the smartest kid in the class a B because you're like, I know you can do better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I really feel like the lack of pushing themselves, or the perceived lack of pushing themselves, I should say, because I don't know where they're at or what their musical talents are. But I feel like the commitment on this is what kind of makes this whole album lack down. What about you, Matt? What did you think?
I give this a 4.1 out of 5. This is a solid album. It's
Mhm.
easy to jam through, and I highly recommend it. Like, it's worth listening to at least once or twice for sure.
Nice.
I would go back and listen to it.
Oh yeah, I would totally listen to this a few more times, and my rating might go up or down depending.
I've listened to some of their older stuff. I'm more interested in what comes out next for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't go back and listen to anything before this.
This is Blenderstyle. That was Bear Propaganda.
He's the best, and his name's Blenderstyle.